What's up, everybody? CP and SJ with you for another week of picks here from every day we're covering. We're into week 12 of the college football season, and we're going to throw some picks that hopefully line your pockets with some extra stuff in there. Maybe it's not just lint and fleece and actually some nice green money inside of there, SJ. We're hoping for another fun week here.
Yeah, we're not that far. We're at Black Friday here in a couple weeks, so get your holiday shopping off to a good start there. And you don't have to. Maybe that's always nice when that extra money goes for stuff you're already going to buy. So we'll go ahead and try to do that. And the last couple weeks, we've been on a pretty decent streak there overall. So let's just keep it rolling this week. Why don't we?
Yeah, let's make it a very Merry Christmas for everybody. Let's try to do that. Of course, we also encourage you not to go ruin Christmas either if you're getting a little too crazy with this stuff. But
Yeah,
hopefully,
stay
we'll
away from that Jake Paul, Mike Tyson crap. Don't even touch. Stay run. If you see some, just run. I saw that on the book, and I was like, I mean, I'm not surprised, but also I'm just kind of like. And we talk about on the pod more often than this one, the audio version. And just like that's the type of gambling issues people the legislators should be worried about. Like that's what we shouldn't be betting on, not necessarily props and that type of thing.
yeah. Well, let's get in here to week number 12. This is we're gonna have a couple that we're gonna match up here on here this week too. So we've got a decent list, I think, here for you. We'll go ahead and start off with one that we both are looking at. But interestingly enough, of course, we talk about this all the time. Depending on when you get the line during the week, it could change, and of course, different books can be a little bit different as well, as we both normally use different platforms for our wagering. We've got a couple different numbers on this one. And I think this is going to be a really good play for folks. SMU laying a pretty hefty number against Boston College, but there are a lot of factors at play here in this game. Not only is SMU playing really good football, BC seems to have dropped off a little bit after their early season kind of, fun run there where they were in a couple of games and, played well early. But it's gone south. And now their quarterback has said that he's not playing anymore because he's going to enter the transfer portal. So that makes it even that much more difficult. That's why I think this is probably a good one to take a look at, SJ.
Yeah, I mean, we don't never want to get too overconfident. I ended up, getting 17 on this game. Did it early in the week too. I don't typically like to, but with some totals and spreads, it's okay here and there if you're kind of really following these teams. And I felt pretty good when I made the play. Obviously, I wouldn't have made it, but then the quarterback news comes out later in the week, and I mean that definitely boosts our confidence. There, you got to think that they could be, like you said, going south, and it could be tough times there up in Boston College, at least for the rest of this season. Because I mean, from where they were a few weeks ago to this, you couldn't have got much more opposite than this. So it should be a good play there. And I mean, SMU maybe let us down a little bit early in the season, but it seems like they're kind of hit their stride. So you combine those two, and that looks like a good play.
Yeah. And my number's a little bit higher because it is, after that news hit. So obviously the line's going to be affected a little bit. 19.5 is what I'm looking at here. So a little bit more. Yeah. I'm still pretty comfortable. This is going to be a, 3 to 4, 5 score type of win here for SMU. So hopefully that plays out. But it does make it a little bit tougher. And obviously, as the week goes on, who knows? Maybe that trends that direction because other people are thinking the same way. So, get on it when you have the opportunity, I suppose. The next game I'm going to go here. We'll go to one that I just have on my list. I'm going to go South Carolina and Mizzou. Last week, I guess maybe I'm double dipping here because last week you had Mizzou on the overs with the Oklahoma game and it got there. I'm going to go there again because I think I do think South Carolina is going to win this game, and I think they're going to win it probably by a couple of scores. So I was even looking at that line a little bit, and I was like, I really want to play South Carolina, but the line is a little bit too much for me. So I thought that number is so small, 41.5. It doesn't take much to get there for a couple of teams that have shown the ability to score pretty well at times. And South Carolina tends to do that really well when they're at home. So I like that scenario to get over that 41.5.
Yeah, team here that we I really wanted to play this. I guess the upset if you go by the number. That's the Colorado Utah matchup. But I just feel like, especially the way they played against BYU after last week, we really played well, and it's like, well, can we expect or can we hope that they do that again? And obviously, I didn't feel confident in that, so I went with the total. It's 45 when I made the play with Colorado and Utah. Doesn't seem like an extremely high number with Colorado's defense has been pretty decent here the last few weeks. I mean, if you get a 28 to a 34 spot out of them, you'll be doing pretty good. I think it could be competitive still if Utah comes out and plays like they're capable of. But we mentioned the earlier in the week is like, did they max out against BYU? Because obviously it's a huge rivalry game. That was kind of like their chance to maybe they maybe could have rallied late and kind of salvaged the season somewhat. But coming off that tough loss and the way that they lost, kind of a little bit of salt in the wounds there, if you will. It might be tough for them to bounce back. So I wouldn't be surprised if they do play well again. But I'm just not confident enough. So I'll go ahead and take the total 45 points, especially with a Big 12 type of game. That shouldn't be a big total at all. That seems like kind of like that Missouri and South Carolina game you mentioned, and seems fairly low number considering all things.
Yeah, you'd think at least one team helps hold up the end of the bargain there. So that's probably a decent way to look at it. I'm gonna go here to another game in the Big Ten, and I'm gonna go with the Oregon Ducks again. I've been on them a couple times, and I just feel like again this is another one of those games that they're gonna pull away late. They are on the road at Wisconsin, so maybe that makes it a little bit more difficult. But only laying 13.5. Since it's under that 2 touchdown mark, I feel really good about that. Wisconsin, has shown that games they get down in, they kind of fall apart, and it hasn't gone well for them at the end of games. And that's where I think Oregon will definitely put this line away. So I'm going to go with the Ducks to roll to another one.
Yeah, I mean, just being as explosive as Oregon is kind of the opposite of what Wisconsin's showing, at least over a 4-quarter stretch. They at times, maybe keep a game close early or make a run there late to kind of make it interesting or even competitive. But they're haven't been able to do it for 4 quarters all season. So that's a good pick there. I could see that getting really ugly, and Oregon's gonna rack them up if they get the chance. So I think they'll probably do that. Here's another one. We're either both gonna be really happy or both pissed off. And I think we even got the same number on this one. It's still in the Big Ten. We'll just stay there. It's the Ohio State Northwestern matchup, 43.5. I'm guessing you're with me. I'll let you speak for yourself here in a minute. But I figure, Ohio State's just going to roll big time. I mean, 45-7, 52-10, whatever you put it, pick it. That's about what I'm thinking. So if that's the case, which I assume so, 43 or 44, I guess we'll need. That won't be too big of an issue there. I just think it's going to be pretty much, pretty ugly contest, but most of the damage will be done Ohio State. They might get 44 themselves.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was looking at this. It's like Ohio State might just do that on their own. They could win that. I could see a 49-0 type of game in this one. But yeah, even obviously you'd love some little bit of help from Northwestern, just put a couple scores on the board. And Ohio State necessarily hasn't been like overly dominant on defense either, so I could see that happening. But yeah, they're going to run away with the game, especially as the game progresses. And that's the way Ohio State's played all year. The first half hasn't necessarily been great, but then they find a way to kind of start racking it up in the second half and pull away from teams that are not as good as them. So I'm going to go, yeah, that's a good pick, I think, to look at that over. I'm going to go with my not so old friends from former Big 12 times. I like this spot for Texas. I know this is an old rivalry game too. They're taking on Arkansas. That one always gets a little extra juice because they have some of that history from way back in the day and used to play each other all the time. And I really think they probably should from here on out, but I doubt that's how the SEC scheduling is working. But Texas laying 12. It's only 12. Arkansas just hasn't really performed in the big games yet this year. You kind of a couple of times I think we got fooled when they beat somebody that wasn't necessarily very good. And we're like, here they come. Maybe they'll be a little bit of a surprise team, get a couple of teams. Well, as it's played out, if you look at the whole schedule, like, yeah, they didn't really beat anybody that's that impressive. They've actually lost a couple of games that you're kind of like, well, they really shouldn't have lost that game. So playing a Texas team that's good enough with enough talent, and I'm not saying that Texas is going to absolutely destroy them and blow them out of the water, but to win by a couple scores, I don't think is asking too much in this game. So I'm going to go Longhorns.
Yeah, this is the old Southwest Conference kind of few years, decades, I guess, back now. You would have thought like, oh man, that's a hell of a matchup. But it's quite a bit since Darren McFadden was rolling down those mowing defenders over. So yeah, it should be a pretty easy win. I got a couple more left here. Speaking of friends, these have been friends to us and ones we want to see do well, at least, especially from that running back position. And that's the boys up on the blue turf, Boise State, 13.5-point favorites. I think they'll get it fairly easily, but I thought that before when they played Hawaii, so I'm not going to go too heavy with the confidence. But obviously, I do think that's a pick that should hit pretty easily, considering just the body of work and how well they've played this season.
I looked at that line too. I'm with you there. My only hesitation was just kind of looking at some other, games that have been like that, like you said, where you thought, oh, they're going to roll in this one, and then they kind of just, let the foot off the gas a little bit. They have a tendency to do that sometimes, but yeah, I think that's a good spot in this game. I think that they can easily roll if they do what they are capable of.
And last one I have here is now this one makes me a little nervous, but we're gonna go ahead and go with it. And Tennessee is when I played it, I think it's gone down to 9 or 9.5 at last check, but I got them at 11. So I mean, we kind of talked about just in big games, they're like one of those teams. Like I mean, I guess I could just list some like a Missouri, like even like a Kansas State. It's like when it's kind of the spotlight when the pressure's on. What do we expect, or can they get over that hump? So this is going to be definitely like with the Georgia matchup here. It's going to be kind of one of those put up or shut up moments again. Tennessee's had quite a few of those. We saw Ole Miss kind of, I mean, in a way, get over the hump a little bit last week. So maybe it's Tennessee's chance. And I do think Georgia is kind of, I don't know that they're like, you don't want to write any team off because it's never done until it's done. But they're out of sorts at least. At minimum, something's off and not quite right with them. So if you're going to get them, I guess now would be a good time to do it, especially with Tennessee just, kind of having that one loss. And for the most part, I've played pretty well all season.
Yeah, and and getting a little cushion there. I mean, yeah, I agree. That's probably a good way. It's one of those games where you would look at it and think it's probably going to come down to late tight type of game scenario. You would think, because of Georgia, you're not going to totally think that they're going to tank just because they're Georgia. And at the same time, yeah, Tennessee, they've won some big games, but usually it's when they've been a big type of underdog. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I agree, but I don't hate the play. I think that's probably the way to go with that.
Well, I mean, and even considering like the two losses, but who's to say a three-loss team from, if it's going to be a three-loss team to make it's going to be from the SEC. So I'm sure Georgia doesn't think they're totally out of it, even with this loss. So, I mean, I guess there's still something to play for on that end. I just don't know that they're going to be able to put it all together. That's my thought.
Yeah. One bonus pick I'm going to go with here too. I thought about putting this one in my top 5, and then I just kind of flip-flopped a little bit with another one that I liked a little better. But our other friends there from out west, the old UNLV running Rebs, they're laying 20.5 against San Diego State. San Diego State has had a very rough season. They kind of laid a real fat egg last week out. And UNLV obviously has capability to put up points and play very well. So I don't like that it's close to that 3-score mark. I would have loved to have that number down around the 2-score mark in this one, because I do think it'll be close. But I think it's another one of those scenarios where, kind of make a couple plays late and UNLV will get over that 20.5 mark. So that's probably one I'm going to play too, along with the others.
One I was keeping my eye on. I wanted to pull the trigger, but I kind of backed down there at the end. Was the Arizona State? I believe they're getting about 8.5 points when I last checked it against Kansas State there, and it kind of just seems like I don't even want to call it a trap game because they're both 7-2, so it can't. As far as what the talk, who they're talking about within the conference, and then also just I guess the ranking, the number by the name, whatever that means. The Kansas State's the favorite and the odds to win it there, but I might even like the upset. It just seems like it sets up for one of those. But that's something if you want to maybe take a look at games outside the ones we mentioned. That would be one that I'd probably look at, and I think that could be a pretty good game there. With I don't know, it seems like we've been getting a little bit more of the I don't know what unexpected or just the excitement there, those later kickoffs at least the last few weeks. So that might be setting up for something kind of interesting with there.
Yeah. A couple other lines that I was just peeking at that might be just something to keep an eye on. Tulane was laying 7 at Navy. I think that sets up well for Tulane. I Navy's obviously kind of taken a little bit of a downturn here from what we thought they were a couple weeks ago. And then Washington State only laying 10 at New Mexico. New Mexico, really not a great program. Wazoo's got a pretty decent record, but the only thing that's a little bit scary is you look at the schedule, and they really haven't played a lot of tough teams. So they've got a great record, but yeah, it hasn't been that rough of a road. But only laying 10, I would take a peek at maybe playing that. A game I think is going to be fun to watch how it comes out. I would stay away from this as far as making a play on it. But just because of what I went through last week, I would take a little gander at how that's going to play out with Kansas going to BYU this week. Obviously, BYU coming off the skin of their teeth, super emotional win. And then you got a team coming in that seems like maybe they think they found themselves again there in Kansas with, it do have a bunch of seniors and obviously shown that they can play well at times. So that's going to be an interesting game. That feels like a kind of a trap scenario there for BYU. The fact that they're home, I think, is maybe the saving grace, but will be fun to see how that plays.
Yeah, it seems like, kind of the common thing to say is just the matchups and the styles. And that might be one where that does actually, and not just, the easy line to say, but that might actually factor in when if Kansas is rolling like they were last year in recent time when they had good squads, they've been as, explosive as anybody and kind of the out athlete teams. And if they're able to get their guys on the edge and especially if quarterbacks, hitting the spots there, he definitely could be a recipe for a little bit of at the least, an interesting game. And yeah, there's no way I was touching that sucker, like especially after last week. But even just the way that Kansas played is just like, yeah, I'm gonna stay away from them. Give them at least a week or two to cool off, and then we'll check back then because they might have found something just as you said.
Yeah, a lot of interesting ones out there. I think there were quite a few games that I thought that same thing when I looked at the matchup. It's like, yeah, this is intriguing, but I'm definitely not going to make a play because I can't tell you how convicted I am on either side of it. But that should hopefully make for some good football viewing, at least.
Yeah, that was going to say, you'd think it'd be some good games with that. It was if I am about this week compared to maybe like week 2 or 3 is about the toughest I can remember is, trying to gather up just 5 picks to be confident about. So that tells you what the schedule is like this week. And hopefully it plays out like that. We're a little bit, maybe hesitant on some. So that means we're going to have some pretty good games this weekend.
Yeah, lots of good stuff to watch. We hope that you, of course, watch along with us and give us your picks and recommendations. Let us know how it's going. Hit us up on the social media. You see the handles there at SJM Bets, at Cherokee CP. You can find us there on Twitter. And, of course, let us know what's going on with your plays here for the weekend. Of course, we would love it if you would like, subscribe, get the notifications here on the YouTube channel so that you can get these picks each and every week that we deliver them to you. And then, of course, we would love it if you would like and share the podcast as well. Available in all the major podcast platforms, including here on this YouTube channel, and then also through our main podcast home there at Spotify. So we hope that you join us and listen in for the podcast each and every week, and then wait for these picks each and every week as well. Hope you have an awesome weekend. Watch some college football, have a few beverages, and hopefully line those pockets gearing up here for a happy holiday season. That's SJ Munoz. I'm Chris Parks. Thanks for joining us again for another week of picks here on Every Day We're Covering. We'll see you next time for some more covers.